everyone, welcome to today's video. 2 videos in 1 week. That is a new record for me, well, for lately at least. I figured the video that I uploaded on Tuesday night was, it wasn't a tutorial or anything. I was just showing you guys some of the new goodies that I got. So I figured I would do a tutorial for you guys. I actually filmed that video about a week ago, I think, is when I got all my stuff, and I've just been super busy. I haven't really had time to sit down and play. So finally had some time, and I created this super cute shaker wedding card. I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see that, but we have this window here that has these little shaker bits in it, and it's really fun. It's really nice and interactive, and I just think it's a really pretty elegant wedding card in general. So I'm going to show you guys how to make this one today. Let me move my water over. So this card, oh, the card is not wanting to go where I put it. So the card is a little bit more complicated than my usual fast, easy cards are, but I really love the look of it, and I really love shaker cards. I honestly think shaker cards are so fun because you can put elements in it and really mix it up and have a good time. So this one's a little more advanced, but nonetheless, it's still easy to do. You can still do it. Anybody can make this card. It's not that complicated. It just takes a little more time than just putting a couple layers together. So to begin with, as usual, I'm going to show you guys all the products that we're going to be using today. We're going to be using 2 different stamp sets. So we're going to use Summer Sorbet, and we're going to use this really pretty wedding cake image. And then we're also going to be using thoughtful banners. And we're going to use a banner and this congrats for our little sentiment greeting on the front. We're going to be using 3 ink pads. We're going to use Basic Gray, Blushing Bride, and Versamark, because we're going to be doing some embossing. We're also going to be using the Duet Banner Punch along with our Thoughtful Banner stamp set to create our sentiment. We're going to be using our silver embossing powder and a Stampin' sponge. You could use whatever kind of sponging technique you like, whether it's one of the little finger daubers, whether you like to use the sponge like I do, any kind of application to put some ink on some designer series paper. Whatever your favorite technique is, that's what we're going to be using. You could even probably color it. I haven't tried doing that, but I bet you probably could. We're going to be using our embossing buddy. What are these? The metallic sequins assortment sequins. The metallic sequins. We're going to be using the new foam strips. And 2 of our framelit sets. So the first, I have crazy dog. Hey dude, it's okay. The first one is the Everyday Jar set, and we're actually just using 1 small die out of this set that I absolutely love, which is funny because it doesn't even really have to do with the jars, but I absolutely love it. And we're also going to be using the Layering Circles framelits. So we're going to be using a couple out of there. Now, as far as our paper goes, there was a lot, so I had to put the paper off to the side until now. And I should have organized this a little bit better, but nonetheless, here we go. So to start off, we're going to be using a piece of Blushing Bride, and as usual, this is cut at 8.5 by 5.5 to make our A2 size card base. We're then going to be using a piece of, actually here, let me start from the bottom and work my way up. So we have a piece of Whisper White, and this is cut at 4 inches by 5.25. Then we have a piece of Basic Gray that is cut at 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Then we have a piece of the Designer Series paper, the Irresistible, I think that's what it's called. Basically the white Designer Series paper that has this embossed look on it. We're going to be using 1 piece of that. This is cut at 3.5 by 4 3/4. And then we have a tiny piece of Blushing Bride, and this is cut at 3 1/4 by 4.5. And all of these dimensions will be on my website in the coordinating blog post down below. It's the first link down below. All of the dimensions will be there with pictures and everything, so it'll be super easy to follow. Next, if I can grab these, we're going to be using a window sheet because we're making a shaker card. We're going to use a window sheet, and this is cut out approximately 3 by 3 inches. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. You just need to make sure that it's large enough to cover our little circle here that we're going to cut out. So it's about 3 by 3. I did it a little bit bigger, I think, than 3 by 3 just to make sure I had some wiggle room, but that's the goal with that. And then I have another piece of Whisper White that's cut at just shy of 3 1/4 by 3 1/2 inches. So it's just a little bit shorter than 3 1/4 and by 3 1/2 inches. So there's that, and then you'll need a little scrap of Blushing Bride and a little scrap of Whisper White. This will be for our banner, and this will be for some of our confetti pieces. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and color our little background here. And again, this is that designer series paper that does the, basically it has an embossed resist technique that you can do at home with any of your stamps. It already has that on here done for you. So what we're gonna do is take our Blushing Bride ink pad and our little sponge dauber. And again, if you want to color this with your Stampin' Write markers, you can do that. If you like the dauber instead of just the sponge, you can use that. I don't know if you can watercolor this paper. I haven't tried. I would assume you probably could. I just don't know what kind of results you would get. But any way you want to color this, go for it. And what you'll see happen is as we add the ink, that embossed resist happens, that concept, wherever it's embossed, it's resisting the ink. So we're only getting ink really on the background, and then we have this really pretty pattern that shines through. So that's that. It's pretty easy, and that's the only thing that we're going to be using our Blushing Bride ink for. So you can go ahead and set this one off to the side. We don't need it anymore. While we still have this piece, let me use my piece of paper here. While we still have this piece out, the next thing that we're going to do with this is we're actually going to die cut out a circle, and you'll see why we do that here in a second. So I'm going to take the largest circle from the Layering Circles framelit set, and I'm going to place it down on our little piece here. You want it to be even to the left and right, and a little bit down from the center, or from the top. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't, you can't really mess this part up as long as you don't have it right directly on one of the edges of the paper. You really can't mess it up. So I'm just using a couple pieces of washi that don't want to stick to kind of secure that down, and I'm going to just grab my Big Shot. Put this bad boy down, put this on here, crank it through once. There is that. And we'll be using the Big Shot one more time. Actually, no, a couple more times, but we don't need it right this second, so I'm going to set it off to the side again. And now I'm going to take my piece, and I'm just going to we don't need this circle anymore, so we can set that off to the side. And then for both of these pieces, we can set these off to the side because we don't need these right this second. When I had this piece out, I figured I'd go ahead and die cut it because I knew we were going to need to eventually. So next we're going to start with our little window sheet. And the first thing that I would suggest doing is figuring out which way it's going to line up on your piece, your smaller piece of Blushing Bride. This is the one that's cut at 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And you just want to look to see how it's best going to fit on this little piece. Set that back off to the side. And now I'm going to take my window sheet, and I'm going to take my embossing buddy, and I'm just going to put this, I'm going to pounce this all over. Usually you rub the embossing buddy, but with the window sheet, you can't really rub it because it basically rubs right off. And for this, we're going to take our Versamark ink and our wedding cake image from the Summer Sorbet stamp set, and I'm just going to ink this up in Versamark. I have crazy dogs. I might need to go get them. I feel like every time I try and film, there's issues. I will be right back. Okay, we should be good now. Oh, the joys of having puppies. Anyways, I'm going to just ink up my cake with Versamark. I'm actually going to stand up to do this because I find it's a little bit easier to stand up and get over right over the image. And I'm just going to center this as best as possible on my little piece of window cling or window sheet. I don't remember what it's called. I'm just going to really stamp that down and then stamp it or pull it right up. And you'll see that you get some of the powder on here. It's fine. It's not a big deal. What I'm going to do now is take this. I'm going to bring over my piece that I used to color on. I folded it in half, and now I'm just going to put my embossing powder on there. And I like to cover up my Versamark before I do this, just so I don't get any stray embossed powder on there. And just turn it over, and I'm just going to give it a couple little whacks. Ooh, I didn't mean to do that. So you'll notice that it's a little splotchy. That's okay. We can fix that. But the first thing that you're going to do is go ahead and put your stray embossing powder back in the container. I always like to close mine up just to be safe. And what I'm actually going to do, I had a baby wipe, here it is. I'm going to take my baby wipe and just kind of clean up the area. You can see that I have some embossing powder that I got all over the place. I just don't want this to stick to my desk. So I'm going to make sure I clean that up just in case the heat gets far enough to hit that embossing powder. It was over here, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But just in case, I don't want to heat set a bunch of embossing powder on my desk. Let me clean up my Versamark pad. This baby wipe's a little bit better. It's a little more damp. Okay. So now what we're going to do is take our piece, our window sheet, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set this. You're going to use the heat setting number 2. My best advice for doing this is to make sure that you get it nice and warmed up on your hand, your arm, whatever, and then hit the window sheet as least amount of times as possible. The more that you heat it, the window sheet gets a little warped just because of the heat. It's fine. When we adhere it, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but it's definitely easier to deal with when it's not as warped. So that would be my suggestion, is hit it with the heat gun as the least amount of time as possible. And you can kind of rock it back and forth like this to kind of bring it back into shape. Again, it's not the end of the world. We're going to fix it, and nobody will ever know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean off my stamp just for good measures. I had some of that Emboss Buddy powder on there. And now what I'm going to do is I want to really get a nice dark image, and I want to fill in some of those gaps. Now, you can see on my sample here, there are a couple spots that have a few little gaps. It doesn't bother me that much, to be honest. As long as I get like the general idea, I'm happy with that. But what I'm going to do is take my stamp, and I'm actually going to flip it upside down. And I'm going to take my window sheet, and you want the side that has the emboss powder. Oops, I almost forgot. You want to put your Emboss Buddy down on here again, just for good measures. So I'm going to just take it, and I'm going to put it down. I'm actually going to bring this a little closer to me. I might stand up to help a little bit. And you're just going to put it down right on your stamp and really just work it in with your fingers and make sure that you get contact with the entire stamp. Just like that, and then lift it up. And then this, we don't actually need that anymore, so I'm going to set that off to the side. Again, we're going to come in with our embossing powder. Now, the thing with doing it a second time is that it does get a little smudgy. So, I don't know how well you can see on here, but we don't have really crisp, clean swags in the cake. doing this, because you're embossing on a window sheet and because of just the technique that we're doing, you're not ever really going to get a really crisp, clean image. So that's just one thing that you just kind of have to accept. I personally have not found a way to do it, at least. Maybe some other people have, but I have not found a way to get a nice, crisp, clean image when embossing on a window sheet. So that's just something that you just kind of have to go into it knowing that it's probably not going to look 100% perfect. And trust me, I am a perfectionist, so it does bother me a little bit, but you just make do. I think once you have all the shaker bits and you have that pretty paper behind it, you really don't notice it. I don't, at least. So all I did was I just went in and cleaned up some of the stray embossing powder that I didn't want. Just like that. I'm going to take the spare embossing powder, whoops, put it in here. Goodness gracious, I am just spilling all over the place today. What is happening? I don't know what's gotten into me. Okay, well, let me clean up again. Baby wipes are one of my favorite craft room tools because they're just awesome. You can use them to clean up everything. Okay. So now that we've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and take my piece again, and I'm going to heat set it one more time. Again, I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to heat it up really well on my arm and on my hand. And then I want to concentrate the heat in one area for as little amount of time as possible. So there we go. Put that back. And then we're just going to let this sit. I am going to use that baby wipe again. See, I'm telling y'all, use the baby wipe. I'm going to find an area that is not covered in embossing powder, and I'm just going to wipe this down so that we can remove all of that powder from our Emboss Buddy, and we're left with our nice clean sheet. So I'm going to, again, you can roll it back and forth in your hand, especially while it's still a little warm. That works really well. But I'm just going to take this and I'm going to set this off to the side because we're not going to be using that right this second. The next step that we're going to do is take our small piece of Blushing Bride. This is, again, the one that's cut at 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And we're going to take one of these scalloped circles from the layering circle set. And this is actually the second largest. So it's not the biggest, it's the second largest. And we're going to cut out our little window where our shaker is going to go. So again, kind of like we did with the circle earlier, we're just going to take our little framelit, and I need some better pieces of washi tape, but these will do for now. And I'm just going to set this down, and I'm going to position just like that. Bring in my big shot again. Set this down, and I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you guys. So you can do it wherever you want. I like to position it pretty close to the top, pretty much as close to the top as it is close to either side. So you want to, again, center it left and right, and then it's going to go pretty close up to the top of our little piece. You obviously still want a border, so you don't want it right up, butting up against the edge, but pretty close. Or you could do it in the center, you could do it on the bottom. It's your card, you do it however you want. This is just how I decided to do it and how I kind of like the look of it. This is actually the third time that I am making this card. The first couple times I wasn't exactly satisfied, so I had to make it a couple times until I was super happy with it. And that's just what you have to do sometimes. You have to make your cards over and over before you get a product that you like. So now we're going to take this piece out. We're not actually going to be using this scalloped piece, so you could keep this for an embellishment and for another card. I think I have like 6 or 7 of those now. And we're done with our little scallop circle, so we don't need that guy anymore. Next, what we're going to do is go ahead, you can flip over your piece. I like to flip it over just because I like I have this concept of like a pretty and ugly side. So we're gonna flip that over and we're gonna take out our foam strips. And for some reason, the past 2 times that I've done this, I cannot get the backing to stay on the strip. I've been having such a hard time with it. I don't know why. Oh man. Okay. Whatever. We'll work with it. Now all I'm basically going to do... Oh, what am I doing? I'm totally skipping a step. Huh. Good thing I caught myself. Before you put your foam strips on, we need to attach our window sheet. The easiest way I found to attach this is to use some fast fuse. And I just put a little bit of adhesive on all 4 corners of the piece. And just attach it that way. If you can get a little at the top, I suggest getting some at the top, on the sides. I mean, this is how your window sheet is essentially getting attached to the card. And now we're stuck. Oh, good lordy almighty. Now I got fast fuse all over my finger. Good lord. Okay. Okay, there we go. Good enough for me. So then you can choose, I like the embossed side out. So you're gonna put this face down and you're gonna center it as best as possible. Just like that. And just press it down really nice and firmly to adhere it. I would be more concerned about making sure that it's centered in the circle than having the window sheet centered with your cardstock. All you have to do is, if you have a little sliver that's sticking up over the side, just take some scissors and trim it off. Honestly, once the entire card's put together with all the layers, you really don't notice if there's a little tiny piece hanging off up at the top. You just don't. Now we're going to take our foam adhesive strips and we're going to start going around the circle on the back side where we just adhered down our window sheet. And I'm actually just going to remove this because it's coming off, it's just becoming more of a hassle than anything else. And I'm trying to get as close to the edge of the circle as I can. Because it makes it easier when we go to adhere the backing of this. But you also don't want to see the foam, so if you aren't comfortable enough to get super up close to the scalloped edge, don't worry about it. You just do what you need to do and we will cover it all up with no problem. And we're almost there. Dun, dun, dun. And I just need one tiny little itty bitty sliver to close up that hole. If it was a little bit smaller, I would say I wouldn't worry about it, but because some of our little goodies would be able to get out of that hole, I'm gonna go ahead and cover it up. So I just take an extra strip, snip off a little bit, and then just tuck it in there. Next, we are going to start putting our goodies in here. So for our goodies, I'm going to go ahead and make some goodies first using our Big Shot. And this is where we're going to use our Jars of Love framelits. Is that what this one's called? I think it is. Everyday Jar framelits. I think the Jar of Love is the stamp set. I don't have it all down yet, guys. I'm so sorry. But in that framelit set, there's this little tiny hearts framelits. It's super cute, and I love it for making little confetti pieces for this card because they're little hearts. You can color coordinate it to your color of cardstock, so you don't have to have confetti bits to make a shaker card. I don't, that was one of my concerns, is I don't have confetti just laying around. How am I going to do this? And I've utilized some framelits to be able to create some shaker bits for my shaker card. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my Big Shot. This is the last time we're using the Big Shot. So if you want to do all 3 of the Big Shot cuts at once, go for it. I like to do things kind of in stages. So that's why I do it this way, but you do whatever you feel comfortable doing. And now I'm going to lift this up, and we're actually going to do this 3 times. So what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to set this off right here. where is my poker? Here it is. So now that I have these cut out, they actually stay in the framelit. So you can just very easily just poke them out into your little circle. I'm trying to do this because I'm left-handed. It's a little difficult with my arm right here. So yeah, you just want to poke out your little bits and then make sure that if you can have it to where you're not, where your backing isn't coming off, I would suggest doing that. But if your backings come off like mine, you can just make sure that you don't get any sequins and shaker bits stuck to the inside. And like I said, I'm going to do this 3 times total. I'm going to go ahead and take my sequins, my metallic sequin mix, and what I like to do is, because I don't really want the gold and the black and I don't want a ton of the silver, I like to just take a little pinch in my fingers and I put them in the lid and get them unstuck to my fingers. And then I will take them, like that white one, and I will just take them straight from the lid and put them into my card. So this way you can be very selective as to which ones you're using. If you have a certain color palette that you're going for, if you're trying to do, maybe you don't want the stars in your shaker card. Maybe you just want the hearts and the circles and that kind of stuff. So you can really customize it. I just like doing this because I didn't want the gold and the black really, and not a ton of the silver either. Just because it didn't really, the silver matches, but I wanted the silver to really be showcased in the cake and not necessarily the shaker bits. So this way you can really pick and choose which bits you want in there. So I think that's good enough. You don't want too much because you want them to be able to move and shake around. So I'm just going to close that up. Now, one thing that I would suggest doing, and it's probably easier to do it before you put your sequins in, but it doesn't really matter. You can just pile up everything into the center. If you take your little emboss buddy and just hit it off on the side, I happen to have an acrylic desktop, so it's easy for me to do it just right on my desk. Or if you have, you can use the inside of one of your stamp cases if you want to, but I just take a paintbrush and I pick up the powder from the embossing buddy and I just run it along the inside of my foam tape. The reason that I do this is so that if there's any little sticky bits hanging out, it doesn't attract and grab our sequins, so they still shake and move around. That's one issue that I came across, and this is how I found to prevent it. It's really simple and it's really easy, and it actually does work. I mean, it's not 100% foolproof. You still might get 1 or 2 stuck from time to time, but it works fairly decently. So that is that. I'm going to set that off to the side just for a second, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my piece of Whisper White. Again, this is the one that's cut at just shy of 3 1/4 by 3 1/2. And we're going to grab our circle piece that we cut out earlier. I'm going to get some just regular adhesive. Doesn't have to be special adhesive or anything. It doesn't have to be fast fused. Just regular old adhesive works just fine. And I'm going to put the adhesive on the back of our circle piece, and I'm going to adhere it to our little piece of Whisper White here. Again, with kind of the theme that we had earlier, you want it, this one you want it fairly close to the top and then even left to right. And basically what this allows is for us to adhere this circle as the background much easier than having to adhere it this way. The first card that I made, I tried to adhere it with this just as a rectangle, and it's very, very hard to center this piece on, center the 2 pieces together without spilling all of your shaker bits and making it centered and all that. So this is what I came up with as an easy way to get around it. I also thought that cutting out the circle, I could just put the circle on top of the foam and it would work perfectly. Well, the foam is a little bit wider and depending on how close you get how close to the edge you get your foam, the circle may be a little bit too small. So I found that using this piece, this white piece adhered to it, makes it a lot easier. You don't see the white piece, nobody's ever going to know it's there except for you, but it just makes it a little bit easier. And then what you can do is kind of, I just tap in a couple places, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this up and look from the bottom up and make sure that I don't see any white cardstock. And I see just a little bit on the bottom. So what I need to do is just very lightly, I'm not adhering, I'm not pressing down on all of the edges. So it's really easy to just peel this right up. Let me move my shaker bits again. I would recommend putting all of your shaker pieces in the center so that they're not getting stuck to any of the foam pieces. And again, I'm just lightly tapping it down because we haven't removed all of our foam tape yet. So I think that's good. I'm just going to remove these little pieces of foam tape, and I'm going to secure that down. Just like that. And then what I would recommend doing is just taking your fingers and going around the circle where all of your little shaker bits are, and making sure that the foam is adhered to the paper. So see now, oh my gosh, crazy dogs again. Okay, sorry about that. So what I was saying is now you can see that all of our little shaker bits are in there, and you get this really perfect, pretty circle bit. And what the look that you end up getting when we attach everything is the look that you just took your pink frame and stuck it down on this full sheet of cardstock. Nobody would ever know that you actually cut it out and perfectly placed it. So that's the way that I found easiest to do it. Like I said, I've tried this card 3 or 4 times, and that's how I found it works out best. And all of our little shaker bits are in there. They're not going anywhere. They're just hanging out. So we're going to take that, throw that off to the side, and now we're going to start assembling our card. The first thing that I like to do is assemble all of our layers. So basically our card base and our first 3 layers. So I'm just going to fold this in half, like so, crease it, open it up, and I'm actually going to adhere all of the layers together first and then put them on my card base. I don't know what I'm thinking. So I'm just going to use my regular old tape runner. Use the adhesive of your choice. If you like to use liquid glue, use liquid glue. If you want to use fast fuse or tear and tape, you can use whatever you want. This, we're just going to pretend like that circle is not there and line it up just like any other layer. And then we're going to take this piece, put some more adhesive down, put this on our Whisper White piece, just like that, and then take all 3 of these and one more round of adhesive and put all of these on our card base. Just like that. Perfect. So now we're almost done, guys, I promise. Now what we need to do is adhere this piece onto our card base. So the easiest way to do this, I found, is to take your tape runner, and you want to make sure that you get lots of adhesive right on the top edge because that sticks up. And you want to make sure you get lots of adhesive everywhere else, but I found that the top edge really needs a little bit of extra love, so I put a little extra adhesive there. And then because this portion right here is raised up because of our shaker window, this portion isn't. So what I do is I just take a little piece of my foam strip. The reason that you have to use the foam strips and you can't use dimensionals is these are actually a little bit thicker than the dimensionals are. So just a tip out there, if you're using foam strips and you need to add a little bit of height to another section, just like we need to here, you should go ahead and use the foam strip. Don't try and use a dimensional because you're going to get an uneven card. So I'm just going to snip this piece in about half. I mean, you don't have to have it 100% perfect and covering the entire card. just like that. And another one down here. And I might actually do a couple more pieces just to make sure that it's stable. Okay, there we go. And now I'm just going to remove the backing off of these. We're almost done. We do need to still make our banner, but I like to assemble all of this stuff first and then put the banner on as like our last little effort. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up and push it down, and now everything's on there. So there is pretty much the base of our card, and now, like I said, we just need to do the banner. So we're going to grab this little spare piece of Whisper White, and I have my banner pieces all ready to go. We're going to be using basic gray for this. I'm going to use the banner outline and just down and up. Super simple. I'm telling you, I absolutely love this stamp set and punch. I use it, I think every card I've made in the past couple weeks. I was going to see how long it's been, but every card I've made has, I think, utilized this banner and stamp set in some way, shape, or form. So I just stamped and congrats in the middle of that. That's also part of the Thoughtful Banner stamp set. So everything's included. You get it all. We're going to take our punch and center. I should have made this piece a little bit bigger so I had a little bit more wiggle room, or a little bit more room to grab. Dun, da, 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 da. Just center it up, punch it out, toss away the extra bits, and now I'm just going to grab a couple dimensionals. I like to use 3 dimensionals on this little banner. Put one on each side and then one smack dab in the middle. Again, that's just how I do it. Y'all do what you want to do, and there you go. So we're going to do that. And then I'm just going to center my little banner right here in the middle of my card. And there we have it, guys, a super cute, simple shaker card. I absolutely love this. And the thing with this is you could change the image. You don't have to do this for a wedding. You could do a birthday cake here. You could do a cupcake. In that same stamp set, you have a snow cone, a hot air balloon, a heart. You could do anything in here, any designer series paper in the background, any sentiment message in the little banner. You could change this up and make it whatever you want. It's really up to you. But it's super cute, and it is a more advanced technique, creating the shaker and all of that stuff, but it's seriously something anybody can do. It's not difficult at all. So if you're interested, please give it a try. If you need any tips, any help, any advice, feel free to contact me. All of my information is on my website. So if you go there, you can get a hold of me at any time. If you want any of these products, you can also go there. Also, if you still need an annual catalog to look through all of this stuff, you can still get one of those from me on my website. You just have to go there, use the contact me form, and just request a catalog, and I will get it right out to you. So hopefully you guys enjoy. I love this card. I love the shaker card. I just love the movement in it. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you next time. Bye!